Hi, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. If you've clicked on this video, then you've seen the title. I am just here to talk about the books I've been reading recently. 2021 is the year I told myself I would get back into reading. I have set a 40-book goal on Goodreads, and I think I'm on track. I think I've read 14 books this year, which is, I have not read 14 books a year, let alone before the half-year mark, in so long. So I'm really proud of myself and I'm really excited. So I just have some notes compiled and I'm going to talk about the books that I read in April and March and the start of May. Yeah. So I only picked up the Shadow and Bone series for Ben Barnes, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. You probably know Ben Barnes if you've watched the Narnia movies or The Punisher, or if you were on Harry Potter Tumblr in like 2011, 2012. He massive on there, and because of Harry Potter TikTok, he's having this like renaissance and has just come back as Sirius Black in a very aggressive way, and I'm not mad about it. So he is the reason I started reading the Shadow and Bone books. He plays the main antagonist in the TV series on Netflix, so I just really wanted to watch the TV show with some context. So I found an illegal copy of the Shadow and Bone series and I read it on my phone, and I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I sort of had this weird crisis where I felt like I might have been too old to be reading it, but then I felt like that just sounded sort of snobby and gross, and that's not how I felt. I just wasn't sure if I was the target audience. So I don't think I'll be able to talk about this book in the next one without giving away a little bit of spoiler, so just beware. I'll give a timestamp to when I stop talking about the Shadow and Bone series, but essentially it is about I don't know if she's a teenager, she's like a young woman. Her name's Alina Starkov, and she finds out that she is a sun summoner, which is basically, they have these things in their universe called Grisha. They're essentially witches, wizards, if you will. Like, they have magical powers and they are all very specific to something. So some people can like play around with certain elements. Some people, they're heartrenders, and I think they can sort of mess with people's like internal organs and stuff. And Alina is the only sun summoner that is known to exist, and because their world is sort of blocked off by this thing called the Fold, it is just this horrifying like curtain of black fog that the citizens have to trek through every now and then, and there are like monsters that lurk within it, and if you have got to go through and get to the other side, it is scary because you are not guaranteed to come back. So Alina ends up on a ship going across the Fold, and when stuff goes wrong, her powers just unleash and everyone is out of their minds because, oh my god, how is this girl having the one power that they think can defeat this thing? So she just sort of gets sucked up into the Grisha world and is surrounded by all these like beautiful, powerful people. So it's very much a fish out of water, is sort of YA story, and I think the concept is very solid and very good. But I also have some other thoughts on it. I liked the story in theory, just, I don't know, I did not love reading the book. I love the TV show though, so that's what I mean by I like the story, but I didn't love the execution. The protagonist, Alina, again, I like her in the show, but something about her voice in the novel, she was just sort of a very inactive protagonist and just sort of whiny, and she had reason to be upset, but the whininess was just sort of annoying. I did like the Darkling, Ben Barnes' character, and not just because I knew he was gonna be played by Ben. I just really found him a fascinating villain. Spoilers for Shadow and Bone, he and Alina's relationship was based off of a abusive relationship that the author apparently went through. I think I wrote that on the internet, and you can see how it is constructed from a very real, very toxic relationship. The way he's a villain is just sort of crazy. Like, he doesn't manipulate her by being a villain like right from the start, if that makes sense. Like, it's obvious to the reader that he's evil, but it's not obvious to Alina that he's evil, and instead she's charmed by him because he's charming and he's good looking. And I think that was very fascinating that he roped her in by making her like him and have romantic feelings for him, and then flip the switch instead of just being evil right out the gate. I thought he was very well written. He was probably my favorite part of the book. So I didn't love it. I do recommend it if you want to watch the television show because it will be easier to understand. I also just, this is another reason I probably didn't love it. I struggle with world building and visualization. I feel like as a child I picked Harry Potter and I said this is the only, obviously, this is the only fantasy I will cling to and care enough to understand, because I can tell you anything about that damn wizarding world, but I am so confused by the Grishaverse. But it's good. It's a good universe, and I'm excited to see where the TV show takes it, and I'm excited to read Six of Crows, which I've not gotten around to yet. I did also I listened to the audiobook for Siege and Storm, which is the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and I did not like it at all. So I don't quite know how to articulate my thoughts on this book. I will say my favorite part of the book was anything to do with Nikolai. I think he is a wonderful character. I know he's not like a major love interest for Alina, but he is the one I ship her with if we're gonna get into that discussion. I think he was very charming. I think he was endearing. Just, it got to a point where I did not care about any of the characters but him, and it was because he was just interesting. Everyone else was boring me, or I didn't trust them, and I was just not vibing with them. So Nikolai is 10 out of 10 character and made this book worth it for me. Just tonally and pacing wise, I found it really weird. I felt like so much happened at the start, but because Alina is this inactive protagonist and she has gone through something so traumatic, it felt like she was just going through the motions as all of this was happening around her, and I was very overwhelmed but not soaking anything up. And then I felt like the book lulled for a bit. Same thing, a lot was technically happening, but it didn't feel like anything was happening. And then once the action picked up and the Darkling came back, I was once again very interested in the plot, in the story, in what was happening to Alina. And I don't like Mal. I don't care about Mal. Archie Renault made him very likable in the TV show, and I was shocked because he was giving me Gale Hawthorne in the Hunger Games, just annoying best friend who thinks he is owed romance from his female best friend. Like, I was so bored of Mal and just annoyed by him. I was like, why does Alina like this guy when Nikolai, and I'm not gonna say when the Darkling is right there because he's toxic, but when Nikolai is right there and she's still thinking about Mal, I could not. But this is not a Mal hate filled rant right now. Just, yeah, Ruin and Rising was not it. I was just so ready for it to be done reading it. Like, the audiobook was going on and on, and I just kept looking at the progress to hope that I was closer to the finish line, and I wasn't until I was. And it was painful, and that's all I'm going to say. Those are my thoughts on the Shadow and Bone series. Overall, if you like YA fantasy, definitely give this a try. I think it might be for you. I think it might just have been a me problem, honestly, because all of my friends like this. I'm really excited to read Six of Crows because I don't dislike Leigh Bardugo's writing. I think she writes really compelling characters when she wants to. I don't think Alina and Mal are the best examples, but I think a lot of the side characters are really interesting. And also, I'll say it one more time, the TV show was so good. I love it. I hope they get a season 2 because it was phenomenal. This was not going to be all about books I was lukewarm about. I read 2 books recently that I absolutely loved. I cannot say enough good things about them. I will rave about them to anyone who asks or anyone who stumbles upon this video. So the first one I read, let me grab it, is Normal People by Sally Rooney. So I'm not going to spoil Normal People because I think everyone should read it, or at least try to read it. And if you try to read it and you're still not vibing with it, then maybe try to watch the mini-series because it's wonderful. But essentially Normal People is just about two friends, Marianne and Connell. They know each other in high school because Connell's mom is the housekeeper of sorts for Marianne's family, and they are polar opposites at school. He's popular, he plays sports, he has all these friends, and Marianne has no friends. She's very smart and she does well at school, but she just like keeps to herself and sort of seems fine with that. She doesn't seem to actively want to be friends with anyone. She's bullied but really lets it all just like slide off her back. She seems very content, not happy, but content with this life, and she and Connell strike up a friendship that develops into a little bit more, and then this just follows them over the years after they graduate high school, and as they enter university, they end up going to the same university, and their roles in life and society sort of switch, where Connell feels alone and lost and like he has no friends, just very unpopular, and Marianne is out here living her best life, making friends, and she finally feels like she's somewhere she belongs. It was just stunning and amazing. I just loved it. I did not have that deep of an emotional reaction to it. I found watching the show was way more emotional for me. I just think it was so beautifully acted, but it is terribly sad at some points and just sort of heart-wrenching. You know, when you want two people to be together, but their circumstances and time and just nothing is working out, like it's so frustrating and heartbreaking. This is exactly that, like 10 times over. If you saw those photos of Paul Mescal in the short shorts last year and you want to know what the hype is about, but before you watch the show you want some more context, highly, highly recommend. I cannot say enough good things. Oh my god, how did I forget? Sally Rooney does not use quotation marks, which drove me up the wall. At first I was on like page 4 and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can finish this book. I was able to finish it and I got used to it quicker than I thought. I just had to read slower. I get what she's doing with the lack of quotation marks. Do I agree with it? Not really. I don't think it adds enough thematically to not be a nuisance stylistically, but it is what it is, and it was not as annoying and did not ruin the reading experience as much as I thought it would. So if that bothers you, fully understandable. It was not the easiest to handle, but recommend. Last but absolutely not least, we have They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. So basically this book is about, it's not an alternate, it's sort of a sci-fi, if you will, but it takes place in the now. Like they talk about Facebook and Instagram and just sort of modern things in our pop culture, but it is a universe where someone somewhere can predict when everyone on the earth is going to die. So this app or company called Deathcast around midnight every day calls people and tells them that it is their date of death. And awful, it's very dark because they give them, the person they're calling, they give them a list of like places to get funeral arrangements and get your will sorted out, and also they have like travel simulators, and I can't remember what they call it, but it's just sort of this big company where you can do mock skydiving or mock snorkeling and just do all these bucket list things in a very watered down, lame sort of way, but you're dying, so you don't really have another option but to just get it all done really quickly if you want to do it. So our two protagonists, they are both around 18, they have both gotten the phone call, and they meet on an app that is called Last Friend, I believe, and it is so people who are dying can either find other people who are dying, or find sort of weird people who want to hang out with people who are dying on their last day. But essentially the two of them meet up and decide that they're going to be friends and spend their last day together, and they just go on adventures, and both of them have things they want to do before they die, so they tick off little bucket list items and just see the people they want to see for the last time. It's just their adventures around New York City on both of their last days alive. And I know the book is called They Both Die at the End, but I was so attached to these characters that when they both died at the end, I was like, what? How dare he follow up on the title of the book? Oh my god, this book is so good. I could not put it down. It was one of those books where you're reading it at night and then your eyes are screaming for sleep, but you're like, I need to know what happens, I need to know what happens. So definitely hurt my sleep schedule a little bit, but it was so good. Both of the characters, the leads, they are so likable, and just this book is so heartwarming, and it made me want to cry, but it also made me just like reflect on my life. So the author alternates between the protagonist's voices, but also alternates between a few other people, some of them who are relevant to the story. Like he pops in with the ex-girlfriend of one of the characters, he pops in with the best friend of one of them, but he'll also come in, I don't want to spoil too much, but with people who aren't directly attached to them but are attached to sort of the story at large, and it's very interesting. I love this book so much. Oh my god, I'm gushing about it. If you were going to read anything I've talked about, this one right now, and it looks sort of large, but I feel like it was a quick read, maybe mostly because I couldn't put it down, but oh my god, I'm obsessed. And that is all I have to say on the books I've read recently. I hope you enjoyed listening to me rant and ramble. I feel like a lot of my rambling was about Ben Barnes, but that's just a normal day for me. I will link all my social media things down below. I recently started a bookstagram, which I am not a photography person, so trying to make everything look cute has been way harder than I thought, but I'm trying, I'm working on it, and I'm learning as I go. So feel free to give me a follow down there or on my regular Instagram. I don't tweet a lot, I just sort of say nonsense every now and then about Taylor Swift, but if you're into that, then come hang out with me there. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope I can talk about books again with you sometime soon. Bye!